There we go. All right, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everyone to our monthly Investors Performance Group meeting. This is our June meeting. We host these every single month as a way to bring the community together and obviously provide education. There's always opportunities to learn new skills when it comes to investing out in real estate. And we've got two really exciting speakers for you guys tonight. So diving right in, who are we? What do we do? We are the Investors Performance Group. We are brought to you by the Kelly Fry team. Kelly Fry team is a full-service real estate investment advising team. We have brought together some of the best advisors across BC to help you guys grow your portfolio here, as well as across Canada. So if you guys have any questions on any strategies, we hopefully have the answer for you guys or the person we can put you in touch with to help you guys grow your portfolio and grow your wealth in British Columbia and, of course, across Canada. All right, here is our agenda today. I'm not going to talk for too much longer. I'm going to go right into one of our guest speakers. So thank you again for coming. Our first speaker is going to be Jon Switzer from Impact Commercial. We had him out a couple of months ago, and he was talking about making the jump from residential investing to commercial. And of course, he happened to mention the word MLI-Select Program. And I got a lot of questions about people wanting to know more about that program. It's obviously a natural way for a lot of people to go to residential into multifamily residential. So we've got him coming back to really dive deeper into that program. Then we're going to be going through the numbers. What in the hell is happening in real estate in Greater Vancouver? We're going to do a deep dive into the real estate numbers, what's happening locally here so you guys can make educated decisions when you're looking at properties. And then finally, we've got Paul Hecht coming. Paul, I don't think needs much introduction. I think a lot of you guys came out to hear Paul, but he's going to be teaching you guys strategies on how you can use your TFSAs to invest in development property and start building your wealth up to about $4,300 over a 7-year period tax-free with these programs. He's also the author of the Everyday Millionaire, Real Estate Millionaires, How Average People Do It. And he's actually going to be giving away some of these books today. So you guys could walk away with one of his books. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then lastly, we have some hot deals on the market for you guys. We'll wrap it up and send you guys on your way for the night. So without further ado, oh yes, of course. We of course encourage engagement. So feel free to take lots of photos, tag us, videos, any ahas that you have, and tag us on Facebook and Instagram at Kelly Fry Team. All right, let's bring up our first speaker, and that is Jon Switzer. Jon is a commercial mortgage broker. He's began his credit risk management, later transitioned to investment management. What's that?
Sorry, jumped the gun.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Gaining insights during the global financial crisis, he joined Impact Commercial in 2017 and helped grow the firm from 3 brokers to having a thriving team. And I just saw you guys recently brought another person on your Instagram there, so they're continuing to grow. And of course, he's dedicated to valuing clients and building strong relationships. He works with a wide range of clients, from seasoned portfolio managers to first-time investors. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn over the wonderful clicker to here. Sure. Thank you again for coming out and joining us. I'm gonna mic you up and turn it all over to you, ladies and gentlemen. Jon Switzer. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, I definitely want to make a point of introducing Pawnees as well, because we're a partnership at Impact Commercial within Impact, which is, so a little bit of background. Impact's been around for just about 10 years, actually. This is our 10-year anniversary coming up. So started with 3 brokers. We're now 8 brokers and 3 support staff based in North Vancouver. And as I mentioned, within Impact, Pawnees and I have partnered up this year to work on behalf of all of our awesome clients together. So we wanted to just bring some information to you on the CMHC MLI-Select Program. You're probably all familiar with CMHC from a residential standpoint, I would assume. So this is a completely different can of worms. This is commercial-based CMHC. So generally applies to multifamily of 5 units and up. That's kind of setting the framework of what we're diving into here. We'll just jump into the agenda quickly. So what is CMHC? Benefits of MLI Select financing. So I'll get into what specifically is MLI Select. MLI Select eligibility, so property and borrower, what it takes to qualify essentially. Product flexibilities, insurance premiums are a fairly big piece of the puzzle. Interest rates, much different within CMHC than really any other platform. timelines, and recent CMHC deals that we've financed at Impact Commercial. Yeah, so just really quickly giving you a rundown of what kind of differentiates CMHC. And remember, this is not your single family condo or single family home. This is 5-unit and up apartment buildings. So if you hit on a number of criteria that we'll get into, you can get up to 95% financing on apartment buildings. Versus conventional, you're looking at conventional meaning credit unions and banks. You're looking at 75% financing being your ceiling without bringing in like a second lender. And I'll also say that 75% financing is really not a thing anymore in the lower mainland. That's kind of like the old days. You used to have enough cash flow from these buildings to be able to do much higher leverage. Now without CMHC, you'd probably be looking at more like, honestly, anywhere from 40 to 60% financing. When interest rates spiked, we were actually looking at like 30% financing without the use of CMHC, just because the cap rates were getting so compressed. If anybody wants me to dive into cap rates, we can do that too. But basically, the cap rate is a ratio of the income of the property compared to the property value. So yeah, moving on here. Some of these are busy because they just there's no way around it. But I'm glad the presentation will be shared with everybody after, so you can dive into it if you're interested and ask any questions after that. But basically, it's all a points-based system. So if it's a little convoluted, but if 40% of the suites in the apartment building are max 30% of the median renter income, these are all CMHC figures that you can find online in their database. So again, if 40% of the units are not exceeding that 30% of median renter income in that particular region, then you get a certain number of points. If it's 60% of the units, you get 70 points, and then the highest is 100. Actually, you can exceed 100 points, but you don't really need more than 100 points to get to the maximum, which is that 95% loan to value I mentioned before. Is everyone comfortable with terms like loan to value? And it's basically just leverage, loaning 95% of the purchase price, or refinancing. So then there's more points available. If you can't make up the points you need to get to the leverage you're looking for, then you can access more with reduction of energy usage. So increase energy efficiency, you get more points. And I know these are very busy, so I'm just and then the third factor is accessibility. So we don't see a lot of points from accessibility. This is meaning like wheelchair access, lack of, fewer stairs, that kind of thing. That comes more into when we're helping design a new development. When you're looking at older buildings, accessibility is not as much of a factor. Yeah, so main thing is you need a minimum of 50 points combined to qualify for MLI Select. So yeah, you know what? I'm gonna skip some of the wordier stuff here and just let you guys read into it later and let us know if you have any questions. But we can touch on things like minimum net worth equal to at least 25% of the loan amount is generally very important. When you get into development financing, that changes, but this is just talking about a standard purchase or refinancing. And then and then guarantees. So personal guarantees for 40% of the loan amount. Again, we're always referring to loan amount, not property value when we're talking financing. So yeah, here's kind of summing up that fairly complex explanation is how we get to where we're trying to be. So minimum 50 points, you can do 85% loan to value. That's pretty good. It's not that hard to get to 50 points. And in small towns, it's in smaller towns when you have higher cap rates, it's actually quite easy sometimes to get up to the maximum allowable loan to value of 95%. Is everyone familiar with debt coverage ratio? I'm guessing probably not. So that simply means if you have 100,000 of annual net operating income, if you're getting 100,000 annually of mortgage payments, you need 110,000 of net income. Okay, insurance premiums. So yeah, please jump in if anyone has any questions. But this is essentially the income of the property is EGI, and if it's met, it means that the property is fully utilized. So you're basically fully leased up. If it's not met, it means that you have vacancies. So if you have vacant units, you're going to pay a higher insurance premium when you get financing. And these look very high. I mean, they are quite high on the premium side, but they can be rolled into the mortgage. So you're going to feel it a lot less on like a 10-year mortgage term. Interest rates. So CMB, again, most people aren't going to be familiar with this, but that's Canada mortgage bonds. So those are essentially pools of Canadian mortgages that can be invested in. So they're a bond, but they're just, again, a pooling of residential mortgages. So everything in CMHC is a spread over CMB. So we've got, typically about an average of 0.5% above the CMB bond yield is where we're going to see mortgage rates. So MLI-Select, you're looking at 4 to 4.25% currently is about the average on a 5-year, and a little higher on a 10-year mortgage. Okay, a little technical, but a ceiling rate when we underwrite these, it's 0.5% generally above where we actually think the mortgage is going to land. And then that gives us a cushion, because if we exceed that ceiling rate, you actually get penalized. It's not like a detrimental penalty, but it still hurts when you're already stretching your capital to make the purchase work. Pawnees is kind of the expert on managing these in the pipeline. So did you want to touch quickly on the timelines here?
We like to joke a lot of the time that with CMHC, everything is case by case. So this is a case by case scenario, but the most recent deal that we did was kind of during the holidays, a little bit into January and February. So this is the timeline that they had, but obviously in busier seasons, this will probably be a lot longer. In quieter seasons, it could be shorter, but we kind of like to average it out to 2 to 4 months for the entire process, which is why we also apply that ceiling rate, because there's so much time between the application until we get the COI and everything funds. But generally, there's a couple big bottlenecks in the CMHC process. One of them being right at the beginning, where we're collecting documents. There's a lot of documentation that we didn't include here, but we have it in the sheet that's being passed around. There's a lot of paperwork and stuff that you need to submit. So a lot of the times at the beginning, there's kind of a holdup with collecting documents and stuff. But once we have canvassed the market and found an appropriate lender who's interested and they're ready to go, it's about 4 to 6 weeks for once the lender submits to CMHC, because we can no longer submit directly to CMHC, 4 to 6 weeks until a CMHC underwriter picks it up. So that's one of the longer timelines, I think, that we've seen. Sometimes it's as little as a week, sometimes or as long as 6 weeks or a couple months. But once they pick it up, then they come back and they're asking us all sorts of random questions that they feel they need to ask that day. You can get an easier underwriter or a tougher one, but so after they have checked all their boxes and everything is good to go, they will issue the COI, which is the certificate of insurance. And then with that, we go back to the lender, and then the lender has to do their internal approval, which they kind of already did at the beginning when they give us the term sheet and stuff. So they have the majority of stuff good to go, but now they need to take it to their internal credit and get everything underwritten there. So that'll take a couple weeks. And then the second longest period is once the lawyers are involved. We just got quoted from one of the banks that we work with 2 months for lawyers to do their process, whatever they're doing on their end. But sometimes it can be as short as 3 to 4 weeks. But depending on what time of year and what the market's like, that could be a very long period. So from beginning to end, 2 to 4 months is how long it takes. So we're talking today that oftentimes with MLI-Select or any CMHC, there is a bridge lender involved because the timeline of your subject removal and closing is often a lot shorter than the 4 months that it takes to get a CMHC approval in place. So they don't really line up very well. And there's some creativity that goes into the process to make sure that everyone's happy and it closes on time.
So are you finding a lot of people are having to take that bridge option then right now, just based on a lot of sellers wanting things to move fast, and obviously things don't move fast on that side?
Yeah, I would say in most cases we're seeing the need for a bridge. There are cases where they're pretty specific, but we've worked with a lot of nonprofits, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with the BC Rental Protection Fund. That was $500 million that was given to a new nonprofit from the BC government to facilitate nonprofits purchasing affordable housing and preserving it for at least 20 years. So in that case, we had vendors and knew the only groups that were going to pay the price they wanted were these nonprofits. So in that case, they were very flexible. We had some subject removals of, I think the longest one was, it was 8 months before we even needed to request a potential extension. Thankfully, we didn't have to. But I think we all know that's not the norm. Most vendors, especially smaller building vendors are going to say no, I have a need for the capital on the other end. I have an investment in mind. So they're going to usually give you, I'd say maximum 2 months out of probably necessity. So this is a very long, drawn out, annoying process. So there's lots of bridge lenders out there that can take us from contract signing to closing. And oftentimes they're also CMHC approved lenders. So they have a bridge lending arm, and they'll just bring in non-CMHC capital. Where that gets tricky is if we know that on a CMHC underwriting basis, it will do, it'll support 95%, let's say the maximum. Then you need to have a CMHC approved lender doing the bridge, because no credit union is going to come in and say we're going to do 95% financing if we don't have control of the takeout. So it'll be a CMHC approved lender that does the bridge and then the takeout, so they can manage the whole process. Any questions on that? Any of that? Okay. Here's some examples of some recent CMHC financings we've done. Assumptions are quite common with CMHC because the penalties there's a couple of reasons. I would say more importantly than the penalties is the interest rate. If they had an interest rate they got 7 or 8 years ago, it's going to be impossible to match that today. So the buyer, only way the actually numbers work on the purchase is if they assume the existing mortgage. So that's one reason, but another reason is it can be very, very expensive to break a CMHC mortgage. There was one example, we were trying to prepay a $1.2 million mortgage in Kamloops, and it was going to have a $200,000 prepayment penalty. So because the reason for that is it was within a CMHC insured pool of capital, and then somebody or some group has invested in that mortgage. So they expect their full return, and it's guaranteed by CMHC. So if you have $200,000 left of expected return, when it gets broken, you have to make that investor whole. And nobody's going to do that. It doesn't make sense. So you would walk away. unless you can assume the loan.
It's also another place where they don't technically or typically need bridge financing because of the favor, I guess, you're doing for the vendor. They're more lenient on the timelines and the
Yeah, that's a great point.
yeah, the subject removal and closing can be extended. We have one right now that's, I think it's like a very fluid 8 or 9 month close that they're doing, so that the buyer can assume the existing CMHC mortgage.
Yeah, there's almost not a true subject removal date. It's like it's going to take how long it takes. It's going to take how long CMHC will drag it through the process. I say drag it with the kindest intent, but they can be very tricky to deal with. They can be finicky. You can get, ones in a bad mood. Hope there's no CMHC people watching, but it's okay. We can all be in a bad mood though, so it's okay. Then this was construction financing. This one's actually really cool. It's just approved. It's going to be a grocery store on the bottom, and then rental. The CMHC has to be rentals, or at least a portion of it has to be rentals. So this will be retained by the builder, the grocery, and then upstairs will be sort of like higher end rentals. So, but with an affordable component, or else you won't qualify for MLI Select. You would fall into a different, slightly less favorable category of CMHC. And then this was, this was in Kamloops. That was one of the Rental Protection Fund affordable preservation purchases. So that was kind of fun to be a part of. We were part of, what was it, 55 million in financing on just for the Rental Protection Fund last year. So that was really cool to be a part of. Went to some of the ribbon cuttings, and the tenants were coming out to thank the nonprofits that were preserving the housing. So that was really cool. That's it. I think we went a little under time there, but it's I don't want to go too much into the weeds because it can get pretty, frankly, convoluted and probably boring if you're not familiar with it. So, but we're happy to take any questions.
Yeah, feel free. If there's any questions, as well as anyone online, feel free to throw questions and I'll monitor it here. We've got someone just saying Kathy's here from Prince George. She's tuned in. So does anyone have any questions about the MLI Select? I know it's a pretty big topic. One question I have, which has been asked of me before, which I think is best for you guys to answer, is what's the biggest benefit through going through all that process then as an investor to try to jump through all those hurdles to go onto that program?
Yeah, it would just be leverage. If we all have finite capital for our investment project. This is going to take your capital a lot further. So, I mean, a kind of big easy example is if you were going to buy a warehouse, you'd have to put 50% down potentially as an investor, 40 to 50%. With this, you might only have to put 5% down. So imagine if you're starting with $200,000 and how much further that's going to stretch your investment. So, that would be the biggest reason, and the reasons it's stretching that much further is the longer amortization, lower interest rate, and then lower debt servicing requirement.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is CMHC does finance for industrial warehouse store?
No, I'm just making a comparison in commercial. If you're not using CMHC in commercial, you're buying something like retail, office, industrial. You just need a lot more capital. So this makes it, CMHC multifamily makes commercial investing a lot more accessible. Yeah.
Got something online?
Thanks for clarifying that.
We've got a question online from Michael. He says, I may have missed it, but if all units are stratified, can MLI Select still be done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's just very strict covenants. So you can almost do anything you want as long as the lawyers have it properly papered and the correct covenants are in there. So it'll be like you cannot sell a unit during the CMHC term.
Right.
And there's no way of skirting that. It's very, very set in stone. So
what is the minimum number of units required to qualify for this?
5 and up is considered commercial.
Yep.
So And then on the non-MLI Select side, I don't want to go too much into that because it's a whole other bit of a whole other facet of CMHC. But there's a 7-unit threshold on that side. But for commercial, it's 5 units and up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I guess just kind of jumping on the strata, I've heard some people talk about this strategy. But let's say a developer came out and they were offering out, a new development, and you negotiated in to be able to buy a block of units.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't have the whole building. Would you be able to go through an MLI Select knowing you control over 5 units with maybe in a stack or on a floor or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
you can't do that. Yeah, the only way you could do it is if there's an airspace parcel. So you could have airspace parcels, or like you have a commercial podium. Often the developer will hold on to the podium for sort of like family income, and then you have you could have another airspace parcel that's condos, or generally probably rentals, and then the condos up top. So that could be 3 airspace parcels. If you took the whole condo parcel, you could put that with CMHC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Yes.
How much percentage of the unit we need to hold for as a rental building in order to get the CMHC funding? Other one can be able to sell, like if we have 100%, 60% we can rent, and then 40% can be sell in order to get approved CMHC.
Can you maybe just repeat the question?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of the same as the last one. Is like if you have, I think you're saying if there's 100 residential units and you wanted to sell 60, could you do 40, rent 60, and then sell 40? You could if you had them in airspace parcels. Yeah, exactly. So fair question. An airspace parcel would be like a block of the building in the sky. Like you've got commercial podium down here, you've got your condos here, let's say. That could be an airspace parcel with its own strata corp in the middle of the building, but it's completely contained. So the whole thing with CMHC is control, containment. You can't have like a couple of units out there in the building that are within that program. It has to be all within one strata corp. Does that answer your question?
If there's no commercial, just all residential, then it has to be all residential?
It has to be, no, you can have condos and rentals, but there will be a separate like property identifier, like a separate PID for.
It's 6-story building. You can have first 3 floor, first 4 floor, you can rental, and other second, 5th and 6th floor, you can do it as a market.
Not with CMHC, because you would never have an airspace parcel on a small building like that. Yeah, it wouldn't be able to be done that way.
And if we get 5%, if we go rental in our project, 5% down, we can get funding approved. What else guarantees?
Maybe, maybe.
Nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's a 10%.
Sure.
The market condition.
Yeah.
What else guarantees they will need, other than personal guarantees?
What other, sorry,
Guarantees.
guarantees? You would probably have like a general partnership structure of some kind. You would have to have guarantees of the corporations, corporate guarantees.
They need some kind of equity, if less 20 mil of the loan.
When you get into construction loans, you have to have big personal covenants. Like you have to basically be guaranteeing the whole amount of the loan. So a lot of people will actually pay people to give their personal guarantee. There's people out there with lots of wealth that will solicit people to pay them a large fee to use their personal guarantee to get their project done. It's just the way things have evolved because it's so expensive. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the first time I heard of that one. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. You had a question?
Yeah, I have a similar question. As you mentioned, it could be multi-use buildings. Is there, and in here it says you need to tell them how much of a percentage of the square footage is going to be commercial versus residential. Is there like a threshold for that?
Yeah, it can't be more than 30% of the square footage. Yeah. That's the main qualifier.
And that one's at a 1.4 DSC, not a 1.1. So
And that
it's
also
higher.
impacts the amount of loan to value, right?
Yeah.
Is there
The
Very
like
small
a
portion.
sweet spot? Like with the ratio?
it's a bit of a cost benefit analysis on each project because each project's so unique. So it'll be how much can I sell my commercial podium strata units for? Will that offset the lack of extra financing you're going to get from having the bigger commercial space below? So if you want to do like 20% or 30%, you're probably going to want to run 2 models. We can do all the modeling for our clients, and then you're going to just say, well, I'm more interested in the sales part, or I'm more interested in the long-term rental income. It's very, yeah, it's a bit head spinning, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we brought Jon out, just, that way you guys connected to someone. We do have another question online here. MLI-Select has been subject to frequent rule changes in the recent months. How does one stay ahead and aware of potential changes to reduce investment risk?
You're never going to anticipate what the changes are going to be. There's no CMHC insider trading. We all wish there was, but it's really expect that there will be frequent changes. That's the biggest thing you can sort of do, is go in eyes wide open and expect that there could be changes that really hurt your pro forma. So that what that leads to is just be conservative in your underwriting. Don't push any of the parameters hoping that the market's in your favor. When it comes time, you want to really be conservative. Make sure if there's a change that goes against you, it doesn't basically torpedo your project. A lot of that's been how we've been seeing a lot of that. This market's really, really challenging.
What spurs on those changes? Like what gets them to make such
Who
drastic
knows?
changes?
Yeah, some of them are really frustrating, and everybody kind of knows why they're doing it though. So I like that question actually, because one of the things is there was a time when like too many lender correspondents were allowed to go direct to CMHC. And a lender correspondent is when a CMHC lender approves a mortgage broker to be able to represent the lender to CMHC. So at one point there was just this flood of approvals for these brokers going in there, and CMHC got basically frustrated and said, we're shutting this whole program down. And I think it's just because they got overwhelmed with too many applications. Too many of those applications were unsuccessful because there wasn't enough expertise behind this program. So one day they just said no more correspondent lending, and that's like an entire business model of some really good mortgage brokers. So then you've got all this lobbying from the guys that know what they're doing, saying, this is ridiculous. Like, we have to find a way to get back to the old times when it was a little more sane. So you can see I get a little fired up by it, but there's been lots of other ones too. So yeah, you're never going to anticipate what they are. Sometimes they pump the brakes. Sometimes they take their foot off to ease things up a bit. They've done that a little bit recently. There used to be a rule with CMHC that you couldn't take out equity from a project unless it was going to be redirected into another affordable housing project. And everybody has speculation about why they did that, and nobody thinks it was, for the greater good of the program. It was like they were trying to stop the bleeding somewhere or slow things down. But now they've sort of come to their senses and said, you can do it again. And that's really important for the health of the market, because why wouldn't you be able to put in $500,000 of equity, drastically improve a building over 10 years, and then take out the 500, even take out $1 million if you've doubled the value of the property? Like, what market force would say that's not okay, right? So that's capitalism. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to be sort of a passenger in, but yeah.
Totally. We got one more question here online. Another Ross. We got two Rosses listening. Everyone says it's only 5% down, but is there an estimate on the extra costs, appraisals, legals, underwriting fees, etc., that you'll need to come up with quite a bit more than the 5%, won't you?
Well, yeah. So in any real estate transaction, you have down payment and you have closing costs,
Correct.
right? So I wouldn't say that there's any real extra closing costs with CMHC besides the insurance premium. That is a big one.
That gets rolled into the mortgage, all right?
But it gets rolled into the mortgage, and you're going to save so much interest over 10 years. With basically, on average, CMHC mortgages are 0.5% to 1% below conventional commercial financing. Plus, you're getting all the extra leverage. So, if you do that analysis of much less capital required to complete the transaction, and then much cheaper financing, it's just like rocket fuel. So, yeah, if you did an analysis 10 years after and looked at how those maybe a couple extra due diligence reports that CMHC requires, for example, they always want a building condition report. Other transactions, we don't always need them, but you're talking about $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah.
So no, I would say it's a valid point, but when you do that analysis, you're always going to come out on top with CMHC.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with commercial, because there's a lot of people who predominantly do residential, what are some of the additional, like residential, you've got an inspection, you've got an appraisal, so you've got a building condition report, there's obviously going to be an appraisal as well, there's also environmentals. What are some of the other costs associated with closing, just to be aware of if you're wanting to go down that path? And that's just in general with commercial anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got, so in residential, if you're working with conventional lenders, you don't pay a mortgage broker fee. It's paid by the lender. And commercial, there's no direct channel to lenders in commercial. So we always bill our clients direct, and that's not just Impact Commercial, that's the entire commercial mortgage industry. So there's no file logics, there's no like portal to the lenders. It's very, very manual. We do a pretty sizable, like 10 to 20 page PDF is our loan report, and we physically forward it off to the lenders who we think will be a good fit. So yeah, if just for that reason, that's a direct charge. Other than that, everything's a little more expensive, or potentially a lot more expensive.
Add zeros.
Yeah, so an appraisal in commercial is $3,000 to $6,000, right? That's or $2,000 to $6,000 versus what, $500, $600, $700 max.
Give or take.
Yeah, and then environmental is a big one in commercial. So a basic phase one, it's called, or stage one environmental site assessment is $3,000 just flat, no way around it. Most transactions need it, but then if they find any potential for contamination, then you will have to do a phase two, and those are $25,000 to $50,000 before you've even closed on the property, right? So
that's just to get qualified for the financing.
Yeah, so that's when you would never do that. You would never remove subjects without doing that due diligence, and we're very adamant about that with our clients. Like, do not remove subjects until we have full formal financing approval. Yeah. And there's no pre-approvals in commercial. That's an important distinction. So, yeah, then there becomes a negotiation between the vendor and the buyer, who's paying for this phase two. Sometimes they'll say the vendor should have prepared better and should have paid for it. So they'll pay for it. Sometimes they split it down the middle. It's a negotiation.
It's just one of the
yeah, hopefully that answers that. Anything I'm missing extra? Yeah, I guess I could touch on what is our fee.
How much do you charge?
Yeah, and it's an important piece of the calculation for sure. So I would say on smaller transactions, which in commercial is call it up to $5 million loan amount, it's kind of like, it depends if it's multifamily, industrial, alternative, conventional. There's all kinds of things that we negotiate on, but it's kind of like I want to say 65 basis points to 1% up to 5 million, or 0.65%. And then it generally goes down as we get bigger because the number starts to sort of make less sense. If we're charging 1% on 30 million, people are gonna be like, yeah, nice try, right? So it kind of goes down to, call it 0.5% when you get up into big numbers. When it gets up into really big numbers, it can go even lower. So it's really a negotiation. Generally, when you're up into those larger figures, you're working with pretty sophisticated borrowers, and they know the lay of the land. They know what's fair, and we also want to work with everybody for a second, third, and fourth time. So we want to be fair too. We want everybody to walk away feeling, really good about the transaction.
Yeah. As somebody who's been through the commercial process, bought a multi-unit building, the one thing that I always tell anyone thinking about making that move is you do need to be prepared to put money up to walk away from deals, because you're doing those phase ones. If it calls for a phase two, is it worth it for the project, or you do walk away? You do have to do those building appraisals. Unlike residential, most of us who've been investing in residential, you're basically getting qualified and getting the approval from the lender. Then you pay for your inspection. If all's good there, you buy the property. So just be aware, if you are making that move into commercial, you have to have the funds that you are willing to walk away if something's not working out, and have gone through that process as well. It's one piece of advice I like to give all the time. So.
Yeah, there's lots of cases of people spending 100,000 or more on due diligence, between the legal fees and all the environmental due diligence, and then they're ready to go, and then CMHC says, sorry, not approved, and they just 50 or 100 grand goes up into the air. So it's risks for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and that's why we have Jon out here to let us know about these, and make sure you guys reach out to Jon if you guys are looking to get into the commercial space at all, looking in that MLI Select. And again, he came out, did a whole thing on investing in warehouses to offices and everything like that. He can help you guys out. So Jon, always appreciate coming out. And steal that back from you. So when you're whispering over there, we'll catch you. All right. So we're going to dive into our next segment here, is the market update. So this is a segment we typically do every single month, letting you know what's happening in the market. So a well-advised investor is someone who can make the right choices and make the right decisions when they're putting offers on property. So we like to cover this, kind of show what's been happening in and around the Lower Mainland right now. And so that way, if you guys are putting offers out there, you guys are making them very strategic. First things first, we just saw that home sales saw a modest but encouraging uptick in May. So it is nice to see we are starting to see more buyers coming back. I did talk about this last month where I said we are starting to feel it a little bit. And the interesting demographic that we're seeing it from has been the first-time home buyers. And to me, that's always a little bit of an indicator that there's maybe a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for, like strength coming back into the market when the most scared group starts getting out and buying. The ones who always say, I'll never be able to afford this market, suddenly are now jumping in and putting offers out there. This year alone, I've worked with more first-time buyers than I have in my entire career. So that's kind of an indicator to me that maybe as investors, we maybe should start throwing some offers out there. Now, what we're going to look at is the inventory compared to what's happening with sales, and what the relationship has been on pricing, and a couple of other indicators to kind of see, are we getting good deals out there on the market or not? So the first one we're going to look at is the inventory. And we've all heard the news. We all hear it. The inventory has been going up like crazy. As you can see, the top line there, that is the Greater Vancouver market. There's over 16,689 listings in the month of May. And compared that to just last year, that's over 3,000 more listings. So you can see that steep increase. We continue month over month having more people pouring their properties onto the market. You can also see a significant jump in the Fraser Valley. And even though this looks like a flat curve, it's still a bit up in the Chilliwack District area as well. So what does that mean for us as investors? Well, if we're trying to sell, well, pricing is absolutely key. We need to make sure that we're taking all factors into consideration. There's lots of inventory. We can't likely get what someone got last month. We have to factor all that in. But as buyers, we have choice. We don't have to run and put an offer on the first property we see. We can negotiate a little bit more. Days on market is going up, so we can absolutely go and make our money on the buy. Now, in terms of sales, we did see that there's a little bit of an uptick. So you have seen a little bit of growth in the market, but considering we have over 16,600 listings on the market in May and only 2,222 sales, it really shows that there's not a ton of overall activity, right? So sellers are getting more and more motivated as the days on market tick up. So what's the relationship between that and the price? Well, as we can see here, one market saw a little bit of a jump, the Greater Vancouver market, so a little bit up over last month, but you can see it's been fairly stable, kind of just bouncing up and down. It's pretty flat right now in Greater Vancouver. Fraser Valley has been seeing a little bit of a downward spiral here. Last year, the average price was almost 1.07 mil. And now we're sitting at just under $1 million right now. So we're seeing prices come down in the valley. And then as well in Chilliwack, last year was sitting at about 830, now down to 771, which is crazy to think because I remember doing these presentations like 2 to 3 years ago. And like Chilliwack, I was saying, okay, average is sitting at about 1.1 million in Chilliwack. First of all, when I started saying 1.1, I was blown away because I remember when Chilliwack, I'd say, you know, I've been doing this for 12 years now. I was saying, okay, Chilliwack's at 280,000 for a detached house. Then I hit $1 million. So it is nice to see it's come back down a little bit more normal. And a big reason for that is because during the pandemic, these two markets were the ones that took off the most. Right? Everyone was saying, I'm leaving downtown and I'm going to the valley because I'm going to trade in my $800,000 condo and buy an $800,000 house at that time. So that's why we saw that market really took off. And that's also why they were the ones they overinflated. They've now come back down to reality. But still, over the last year, it's still pretty flat. We're not seeing huge dips or huge rises right now. But here's where I really want to say, are we able to find deals out there? And how do we know we're getting a good deal in the market? So one of the things that I look at as an agent is to say, what kind of market are we in? We use a sales to active ratio. Anything that's typically below 12% is in that buyer's market, right? That's where you're getting your best deal. As you can see, we are flirting in the buyer's market. So that means there's still a bit of activity. We're really balanced right now. Anything that hits about 20% or above, that's a seller's market. So we are in that buyer market territory. And when we hear buyer's market as investors, that's when we need to take action, right? Warren Buffett always says, be greedy when people are fearful and fearful when people are greedy, right? We got a lot of fear in the market, and that's where as investors, we can make smart moves out there. But here's the one I really want to point out because I've been watching this metrics right now, even with my first-time home buyers to see if I'm getting them good deals or not. And that is the price to list ratio. So what we can see here is comparatively, the Greater Vancouver market is averaging about 96.9. So if that's the average of what people are getting, that means some people are still paying close to full list, other people are paying below. If we get anything below that average, we have definitely made some money on that buy, or we've hedged the market a little bit. You can see in the Fraser Valley is orange. Fraser Valley is at 96.8, so close to what Vancouver is doing. And then Chilliwack and District's a little stronger at 97.1, but they're all fairly similar. So a good example of this, and this is where when I'm talking to clients, we actually have to get very granular, right? We're looking at the sub-markets. We were talking earlier, there's no such thing as a Canadian market, right? You had a property in Nova Scotia and you said it sold like this, you're trying to sell some properties here and the days on market are going up, right? So because there's no such thing as a Canadian market, there's no such thing as a Greater Vancouver market either. There's no such thing as a Fraser Valley. So as you guys are starting to work on your investment strategy and you're looking at properties, you really have to dive into the real microeconomics of that area. Because a detached property in Chilliwack might be operating differently than a townhouse, might be operating differently than a condo. Even within condos, 1 bedrooms might be moving and 2 bedrooms might be slow. So you can really dive in. Now, a good example of this, using this as a metrics to make sure we're getting a good buy for client. We had a first-time home buyer who, in the area in Cloverdale where they wanted to buy, we were looking at a 2-bedroom. 2-bedroom condos were still selling at 99.9% of list. So people were shaving off a couple $1,000 max. And we managed to get them about 96%. So we found that right motivated buyer. It worked for what they wanted as a first-time home buyer. We negotiated hard. We had a few tactics about throwing in the couch and everything, and they didn't want to give away the couch because they bought it for $5,000. We used that $5,000 to get $5,000 off the price, and we got them a much better price on the market compared to what all the other buyers are getting. So this is a metric that now that we're in these buyer's market territories, we can use this as a bit of a benchmark to make sure that we're actually getting a good deal on the market compared to what other buyers are paying. That at least gives you a little bit more comfort knowing you've put a good offer in and you've locked a good property down. Now, at the end of the day, all of this beyond everything, you know you got a good property when it's cash flowing, you're happy with it at the end of the day, and it's aiming to what your goals are in the portfolio. So that's all kind of said. This is just extra metrics to really kind of get nerdy when you're looking at your investments. Now, what we like to do is we take a look at what's happened out east. We're going to bring it out west, look at some key markets that a lot of investors that we've worked with have invested in. First one here is the Chilliwack market. As we can see, detached is averaging 929. It's down almost, it's down 9% over last year. Again, it's quite nice not to say Chilliwack's over $1 million. And in fact, I'm seeing a lot of great investment opportunities with suited houses in the 700s right now. So again, this is factoring in all sales in the market, including the higher end properties and lower. So it still brings that average up. Inventory is up 22%. Days on market's kind of still averaging about a month to sell if a property is well priced. Townhouses are actually showing that they're up over last year. Their inventory is not super high. It's only 75 listings right now. So there's the townhouse market out there we are seeing is still moving. This is exactly what I just talked about, right? Those micro markets, how two different types will operate differently in the same overall market. And then the condos are down about 10.8%. Inventory is up. Days on market are going up. Let's take a look at Abbotsford. Abbotsford, 1.2 million, down 6.6%, so it's coming down. Townhouses are down just slightly, about 3%, and condos, not too bad. They took about a 2% hit over last year. Inventory is up across the board there, and days on market is all going up, getting closer to 40 days to sell a condo or a detached property. Still about a month for those townhouses. Townhouses overall in most markets I have found still moving a little bit better because that's that middle ground, right? You still have people who are upsizing. They want to go to that townhouse. They can't quite make it to the detached. And you also have the people who are downsizing. They're not ready for condos yet. I actually was just showing a buyer today where they're looking to downsize and we're looking at townhouses, right? They still want space, but they're not like, I don't want to be in a condo. I want a yard, right? Mission market. So Mission still sitting at an average over $1 million. So just down about 2.5%. Pretty big jump in listings overall. The attached market in Mission, I've talked about this quite often. It's really lacking in that market. It's a very heavy detached market overall. However, there is a lot of new development that is happening in that market. So we are going to continue to see that inventory increase as new developments close. But still, townhouses 96 on the market. I mean, they're sorry, 56. You got a 93% increase, and that's still only 56 units, right? So just shows how limited the attached market is there, and 35% increase with 54 listings there. So Langley, we do a lot of sales in Langley. We did a lot of pre-construction in Langley over the years. You can see here that detached still up over 1.5 million, up 26% on the total inventory. Townhouses down a bit and condos about matching the same. Inventory up across the board. Pretty similar as we kind of go through these markets. Maple Ridge, not really too bad. They're holding pretty steady over last year. Maple Ridge detached is a little stronger. We just sold a couple of houses in Maple Ridge that actually sold pretty quick. So good pricing really helps out a lot. Townhouses pretty flat, condos pretty flat. So Maple Ridge has weathered the storm over last year, a little stronger than some of the other markets. And in fact, condos, the inventory is actually down 22.8%. So that's good if you are looking to sell. I took a condo listing just last week. We sold it 3 days on the market. So that market is still moving. This is those micro markets we talked about, right? So when you're looking to make offers, you need to know these things. What is moving, and do you have to pay more, or is it a slower market and can you negotiate a little harder, right? Surrey, it's up actually in the detached market a little bit, but the inventory has risen down in the townhouse and down in the condos, inventory up across the board. And Surrey, I'll just speak to this one. You can see 45 days. Surrey Central specifically, there's a lot of opportunity in that market because nothing's moving. So there's a lot of motivated buyers, especially in the assignment market right now. There are a ton of clients. We actually have a couple. So if you guys are interested in some like walk away from deposit deals, we've got a couple that we have on the market right now where people are literally saying, I'm going to walk away from 100% of my deposit just so I can get out of this deal. They're walking away from anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. Okay. So that means that their prices are really attractive considering what's active on the market. And these projects are closing quick. So the prices are pretty good. They won't quite cash flow quite yet, but they're going to be like fairly break even. So that's kind of nice to see. And then we head over to Vancouver. We do have some clients who like to operate in the Vancouver market. 1.876 million still for a detached house in the Vancouver East area. Over 1.1 million still for townhouses and condos. They're down slightly at 773. Inventory's up across the board. What I'm finding a lot of my clients are doing in the Vancouver market is finding the older condos right now and getting in and renovating those ones because they're still moving somewhat, still under 24 days. So there's been some opportunity there, but you really have to make sure you've got enough of a buffer that if the sale takes longer, you're not like eating up all your profit, right? So everything's about being super conservative on your numbers when you're analyzing your properties. But that's basically what's happening in the market right now. Again, we like to give these stats so you guys are fully prepared. If you're taking action out there, you're thinking about these things, you're asking these questions so you can make smart, sophisticated offers. All right, I hope you guys have been enjoying it so far. We've had one amazing speaker with a really unique program out there for investing. That's your market updates. Don't forget, take lots of photos, videos, post them online, and tag the @KellyFry team on Facebook and Instagram. And without further ado, I'm going to stop talking again because you guys are really all here to listen to Paul talk, right? So we're going to bring Paul up. Paul is an investor, developer, speaker, best-selling author of Everyday Real Estate Millionaires, How Average People Really Do It. He's formerly a Canadian real estate wealth magazine Ask the Expert columnist, and now he's a real estate trainer for celebrities like Scott McGillivray of HGTV's Income Property, which many of us know. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, give it up for Paul. All right, Paul, I'll hand you the almighty remote and I'll let you wire yourself up. And welcome to our stage. We really appreciate having you out. Absolutely.
Appreciate that. Okay. Is that working? Hopefully it's working. Hopefully they can hear me.
Yeah, I can see
Okay. All right. I can see the light.
And we'll all be seeing the light after.
Yeah. So okay, it's a lot to live up to. Well, it's nice seeing familiar faces and names, and so welcome again, and welcome to the new people who have never seen or heard anything about this. This is fun. I started about 20 years ago doing this, investing in real estate, and I started attending investor clubs just like you're here, and it's always nice to see people gathering and sharing knowledge and sharing information. So if we can just put our hands together and thank Cameron for doing this and putting this on. Let's give him a round of applause. And we'll get right into it. So here we go. We're going to talk about developments and using your RSPs, TFSAs, and MFTs, which are mutual fund trusts. All right. So I started, like 20 years ago, I started just buying houses with suites. I would fix them up, sell them, rent them out. I would do lease options, rent tones, assignment of contracts, all the creative stuff that you could possibly do because I didn't have a lot of money starting out. So I had to start out with something creative. And so that's what I did. And I managed to acquire 22 properties in 24 months by doing that. So I didn't own any properties. I didn't qualify for anything. I didn't have great credit at that point, but I was willing to get out there and just hustle and do everything I could for other investors who had capital. And I just put myself out there and went for it. And managed to find one investor, and they said, yes, let's do one deal. And then they were satisfied, and I got another one, and we just kept going. And they had the security, they had the properties, they had 100% of the control of the property. I just had a joint venture agreement with them, just saying as long as I do X, Y, and Z, I get a percentage of the profits, right? Not their capital, that was their money. And that allowed me to build up my own capital, my own cash. And then from that, I was able to buy my first apartment building. Because with multifamily residential financing, they're not looking at your personal income to qualify. The building is qualifying, the income from the building. And so I had no idea. I thought you would have to have like a $500,000 T4 income to buy apartment buildings, right? Because I was used to residential financing. So that was like a dream come true. When I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, I just need to get the cash together, right? So I got cash from 22 properties instead of trying to buy one, right? And helping other people do that. And from there, then I still hold my apartment buildings today. Those are my cash flow for life. I will probably never sell those because otherwise if I do, I might have to go back to a job And I think right now I'm unemployable, so that wouldn't be a good thing. So yeah, I wrote the book Everyday Real Estate Millionaires, just showing how the average person does it. It's 4 short stories, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul, but with real estate investors. And so now I've gotten into development, not just multifamily. Now I've gone into the development, and I've also spent a lot of time in Costa Rica because I like Costa Rica. It's nice and warm, especially when Canada. The older I get, the cold seems to get in Canada, and so I like spending time in the winter down in Costa Rica. And while I was down there, I was like, what am I going to do down here? Well, they don't really have apartment buildings down there, right? It's all a lot of single-family homes. So I thought, well, maybe I'll buy a lot. I split it up into 5, and now I'm building homes. And we just finished our first home down there, that guy right there. And it's kind of fun, just building a house and fully furnished, pool, everything else. It's like $500,000, and it's kind of fun doing that. So now I've got my developments in Canada and then homes in Costa Rica, and I still keep my cash flow apartment buildings in Ontario. That's where I've got those ones. And so tonight we're going to talk about one of the projects that we're doing in Kelowna, and that is that beautiful building right there that is done through an MFT. So let's just talk about MFTs for a second and how this all works. And really, the permitted investments inside are allowable, the RSPs, the RIFs, the LIRs, TFSAs, and the RESPs, right? So the government of Canada allows us to have a registered account, right? That's your RSP, that's a registered account. It must be self-directed, meaning you get to decide what investments you're going to buy. You're going to buy this stock, that mutual fund, whatever. That's called self-directed. So even if you have a LIRA, and it's because the LIRA is called locked in, so most people think that's you can't do anything with it. As long as it's self-directed, you're allowed to pick your own stock, your own bond, right? So then you've got your administrator. Most people have the banks is your administrator, the RSP, right? So if you have that, then you've got your investments. Okay. So these are all the eligible investments that you're allowed to do inside all those plans, the RSPs, the TFSAs, LIRAs, everything else. Most people have no idea you can do all these investments inside the RSP plan. Most people believe you can only do this top one right here, which is cash, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, GICs, and ETFs, right? And the reason that is because none of the big banks will administer any of these. Okay, they only administer the top line. The big reason is because they don't know how to get paid on all this. If you lend your money out as a mortgage, how are they going to get paid on that? Right? They can't charge you for that service. The other thing is they do lending, right? So they don't want you competing with them. So that's why they tell you you can't do that. So you might go to the bank and say, I want to do private equity in there. And they're going to look at your plan. They're going to say, you can't do that. And they're right. You can't do that inside your current plan because they're your administrator. Okay. So if you want to do that, you have to change your administrator, which means you have to go to a trust company. Right. So you can just transfer your existing RSP to a trust company. You don't collapse the RSP. You don't break it down. You don't do anything like that. You just transfer. You can transfer the whole thing. You can transfer a portion of it to a different trust company. And all that trust company is now that's your new administrator. Okay. So most people just do this, and most people have mutual funds, right? Most people's wealth is in their house, their equity, and the second amount is in their RSP, and that's in mutual funds. The majority is in mutual funds. Challenge I have with mutual funds is the fee. Now I don't have a problem with someone charging money to manage your money. I think that's reasonable. I think that's fair. But the way it's charged, I don't think that's fair. So let me give you an example. Say you have a mutual fund and say it makes 7%, right? You would have a $7,000 gain, 100,000, 7%, $7,000 gain. But what the fee does is the fee actually erodes it because you're not, say you have a 2.5% fee. The 2.5% fee is not on the $7,000 gain. The 2.5% fee is on the $107,000. Okay, so could you imagine building your net worth and your advisor taking 2.5% of your net worth every single year? That wouldn't really make sense, would it? So that's why I don't like that. I would rather say, okay, make me $7,000 and we'll do a 50-50 joint venture. right? Because then they get rewarded and I get rewarded. And if we don't make anything, you don't get anything. Because when you do it this way, a 2.5% fee is actually 38% of the profit. Because they're taking 2.5% of $107,000. All right, so that's why I don't like that model. That's why there's other models that you can use. And many of you, might not be paying a 2.5% fee. Maybe you're only paying a 1.5% fee. Okay, well, you're paying 1.5% fee, a $7,000 gain, $107,000. 1.5% fee still takes 23% of the potential profit. I don't think that's a fair deal. Because also, if it goes down, they still take, like if you lose, if you don't even make 7,000, if your portfolio goes down 5,000 in that year, they still take 1.5% of the $95,000. That'd be like me saying, hey, let's do a joint venture. I'll go find the property. I got the teams, right? We'll all make lots of money. We'll have lots of wine. Oh, but there's a little clause in there that says, if we don't make any money, I'm still going to take money out of the project every single year. You guys okay with that deal? You'd be like, Paul, like, here's the door, right? Well, if you're in mutual funds, that's pretty much what you're doing already, is that kind of a deal. All right, so so you're actually sometimes paying to be in it. So just be aware of how the mutual fund is charged, how the fees are charged on the deal. The other thing is we can, say you had, this one's just showing, this is showing the same thing. So you see here, see this mutual fund with a 1.5% fee, $100,000 is $7,000 gain. They get $1,600 of that. You got $5,300. Your actual rate of return is 5.38, even though your fund will show, the statement will show 7%. So there's a difference between what your statement shows. It shows the fund made 7%, but if you calculate your actual rate of return, it's actually less. It's only 5.38% in that example. All right, so just to be aware, good knowledge. This is just showing 100,000 with a 2% gain, because the average gains are between -2 and about 4% on mutual funds. Now, there's other people who trade stocks. They do much better. They're self-directing. They're more aware. They're maybe trading ETFs. Those are better. There's other things inside that we can do with our plans. But we're still in the, I think there's still better things you can do with your registered plans. Because the other thing is, with a mutual fund, it is an unsecured investment, right? And most Canadians are putting all their retirement money into this mutual fund, thinking they're going to get to a certain point, and they're thinking this is going to be retirement, it's going to be safe, it's going to be safety. Well, it's unsecured. If your bank told you you're going to put your whole retirement money into an unsecured investment, how many of you would go, yeah, that sounds like a great deal? You wouldn't, right? But that's why they don't tell you. Right? And that's why we have these meetings, so everyone can just be aware of what we're actually doing and investing in. Even if we had a 1% there, so $100,000, $2,000 gain, you give them $1,500, you take your $497, so you actually paid to be in that deal. Okay, so let's get to the most common things that we do, real estate investors do, is we do private lending, we do private equity, right? Inside all your registered accounts, you can lend that out as a mortgage. Other things you can do is you can lend that into private equity. So what's private equity? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So private equity is REITs, limited partnership units, and mutual fund trust. So a mutual fund trust is kind of like a mutual fund where it has units in it, right? But a mutual fund trust is designed for real estate. So you can buy real estate properties instead of buying stocks on a market. Okay. And the fees are completely different. So let's get to that. So in order to have any of these, number one, you have to have a self-directed account. All right. So if you're in your registered accounts are with the banks, you're probably gonna have to switch them over to a trust company. And you're gonna have to get a new administrator. So this is a project in Kelowna that we're working on, but let's understand development first so we know where we're getting in, right? Because you got to know that also. Okay, so with development, you have what's called phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 and phase 2 is, you ever seen like a model center or like a trailer go in and they're going to build like a 200-300 unit tower, right? And you see the trailer going, then you can walk into the trailer, you can pick out your finishes, you can get floor plans, you can pick out your cabinets. That's like general public can go in there, anyone can go in there and put down a deposit on a condo that's going to be built in 3, 4, 5 years, right? So that's phase 1 and phase 2, right? Anyone ever seen that? Like on day 1 where it says phase 1, grand opening, 50% sold out. Anyone ever see that? Okay, did you ever wonder how can they do that? Like they're just opening and they're saying the 50% sold out. Like I thought that was false advertising when I saw that. I'm like, they can't do that. That's like lying. So I walk in, I'm like, oh yeah, tell me, then, get all the information. And I go, how are you 50% sold out? Right? Because I'm now gonna test them. And they're like, oh, well, we have people buy before. I'm like, before what? I go, before the general public, before we open the door. That's why it's called phase 1 general public. I'm like, oh. And they go, and then once we sell out a certain number of these units, then we'll go to phase 2. We're going to increase the prices. You get less, like the units aren't as good. You don't get as good finishing packages, right? The choice goes down the line. I'm like, oh. I go, so there's people buying before I walk in the door. He goes, oh yeah. I'm like, so how do I get to that?
Call the Kelly Fry team because we're first in our line.
Exactly. He says, well, you got to know someone.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I get to know someone? Right? So what I realized over time was there's usually 5 to 7 different phases of pre-construction, right? That happens, pre-buying parties. So generally what happens is a developer or the sales team will go to all the realtors. And they'll say, okay, realtors, you've got clients who are buying properties. Let's do a VIP party for all the realtors before we go to the general public. Now, before they do that, they often go to certain brokerages. They say, okay, this brokerage has 100 realtors. We're going to come to you. And your 100 realtors can bring their clients. We'll do a VIP party for them before we go to all the realtors. Before they do that, they go to the elite realtors. Elite realtors are the ones who their client has bought a condo in a previous project. So they already know the developer, right? So they have a VIP party for them. Now, before they do that, they go to the platinum realtors. The platinum realtors are the ones who have sold hundreds of condos before, right? Like for this particular developer, hundreds, like lots, right? Sometimes the platinum realtors don't even have VIP parties. They just say, developer will say, here's 10 condos, go sell them to your people, and they're gone that same day, right? Before the platinum realtors, you got the major trades. These are often the trades who have worked on a previous tower with the developer before. So they'll go, okay, we're going to build a new tower. Do you want one of the condos, right? And now we're still buying an individual condo. We're doing a deposit on a condo. Now, before that, you've got the developer. Okay, so the developer buys the land. They go through all the zoning, all the application process, right? All that stuff. So you can invest directly with the developer. So when you invest directly with the developer, that's called private equity. When you invest with the developer, you're no longer buying a condo. At the end of the day, you don't get a condo. You get profits on all the condo sales, okay? So if you did want a condo, well, then you'd have to kind of get in here somewhere. But when you work with a developer directly, or you invest directly with a developer, you're now called something. Anyone know what that term's called? Anyone know what that term is? What are you now considered once you invest with a developer?
Private lender.
Limited partner? Yeah, and or friends or family, F&F.
Oh.
Okay, think of it as friends or family, because now so what's happened when you invested with the developer, you get an offering memorandum or a term sheet. You take that to your lawyer, you take that to your accountant. They go through all of it. They go through the disclosure statement. You know the cost per square foot you're building it for. You know the cost per square foot you're selling it for. You're getting all the disclosure documents. You know what stuff's selling for today. So you're going through all that, right? So you become, like the whole project inside and out, essentially, right? So then when the developer comes to the friends and family and says, hey, do you also want a condo? We're about to release those. Well, that's where you get the very best deals, is right there. That's before it goes to anybody else, okay? So what we do is PhD MFT. So that's the MFT. So that is our PhD, Paul Hecht development. Isn't that kind of fun, right?
And you don't need a PhD. to do it.
And you don't need a PhD. You certainly don't. So the PhD MFD, what we do is we go and we source developments. We go and talk to the builders, talk to the developers, find good opportunities. And then because now we have the fund, we can now flow registered money through that and go and invest with that developer directly. So that allows all of our investors to get directly invested at the same level with the developer. So we'll often do a joint venture. We'll get shares in the LP in here. You know, we'll do that kind of a structure to protect our investors also. And so an MFT structure looks like this. So an MFT allows the MFT to use registered funds and cash. And then inside that fund, you can have different projects, different buildings. You could have one that is for land assembly. You could have another one that is a condo build. You could have another one that's rental income. And this is kind of the structure like a REIT, right? Everyone heard of a REIT before? So with a REIT, what you're doing is you're investing into the equity of, say, 10 apartment buildings across Western Canada. With that, you get a share of 10 apartment buildings. If there's any potential liability, it can impact all 10, okay? With the difference with the MFT is you get to pick which specific building you want to invest in. And if there's a lawsuit, say over here on this one, it doesn't impact these other ones. Okay, so you get to be very strategic about which projects you want to go into with an MFT. And these are called silos. Okay, so that's kind of the main difference between an MFT and a REIT. So this is a really awesome strategy, utilizing the TFSA and private equity and combining those tools together, right? Because all the information's out there about what a TFSA is good for, what private equity is, but the magic is putting those pieces together and making them work, right? That's why I have planners, that's why I have other people helping oversee the whole thing. So this is private equity, okay? So inside the TFSA, you can put $102,000 in as of 2025, as long as you were 18 in 2009. That's the cumulative amount, right? So if you have 50 grand in TFSA now, you could top up to 102. That'd be the max you could do. Next year will probably be another 7. So you just keep adding to the TFSA. It's not like the RSP is based on your income, right? RSP is based on income. You put in a certain amount. TFSA, you don't have to make anything. That's what you can put in there. So let's now take a model and we're going to put 102,000 into the TFSA. And then let's say we find a development deal that's paying 15%, all right? So they offer anywhere from, I've seen 8% to 20-ish percent, 21% on some deals, right? And it just depends on the developer, depends on the profitability. Oftentimes I say, if you're in the 6-7% in private equity, there's not enough in the deal. That's how I look at it, right? Some people say, you know, if you want a higher rate of return, you have to take more risk. Yeah, okay, so that's not true, right? But who taught us that? The banks, because if we put money in the bank, then they can lend out money, and then they make money on our money, right? They're the ultimate no money down at the end of the day, right? That is the whole banking industry. So they want us to be happy with 1 or 2% on a GIC. That way we put it into the bank, we put it into savings. Once it's in savings, they can lend it out. So that's why they love to tell us if we want a higher rate of return, we have to take more risk, which is not true, right? If you think about it, you put $100,000 in the bank and they give you what, $1,000 or $2,000 a year in interest? No worries. And now they lend it out at say 5%, they make $5,000, right? So they make 5, they pay us 2. So they make $3,000. They put in no money. They have $100,000 mortgage as security, right? So where's the risk? We took more risk and we got a lower rate of return, right? So it's just the knowledge, it's understanding that. Okay, so let's say now we find a developer who's offering 15%, right? So with development deals, you put your money in. It's not like private lending where you get paid monthly. You get paid at the end. Once the building's done, all the units have been sold. Then you get paid out, right? So we find our developers saying offering 15%, And now year one, we're making $15,300 per year, and it's just growing. So let's say we find a 2.5-year deal. So that means we're 15.3 per year plus 7,600 in year 2.5. So now we've turned our $102,000 into $140,000 in year 2.5. Now each year you'll be able to contribute about $7,000 per year into your TFSA. So let's say you just put $7,000 in per year into your TFSA, just let it sit there, or put it in a bond, put it in a GIC for a year, right? Collect a little bit of interest, but you're leaving it there so that when this pays out, and some developers will offer bonuses, right? Like say it's a $2,000 bonus. So now you're gonna roll that into your next development deal. So now you're working with a different developer, the same developer, it's just a different project. So now your money's still growing at 15%, but now you start seeing the compounding effect happening, right? You start seeing where year one, you're getting $15,300 per year. Year two, you're now growing at $23,400 per year. So that's the power of compounding. So that's why sometimes the smaller deals make more sense than a longer deal, because even if you have a developer offering, say, 18% on a 5-year deal, well, you're not compounding until the 5th year, whereas the one offering maybe 15%, but it's half the time, you're compounding. You're already making more by doing that, right? And that's just a number. You just run the numbers on that. So now at year 5, you've now turned your 102 into 214. Plus now you take your 777 that you put in each year, right? Adding your 7,000. So now we've got 777, that's 5 years, okay? That you're putting in your $7,000. And now you're up to 238,000. Can you still see that over there? Now year 6, now you're growing at 35,000 per year, right? So you see you're growing more than double already at that point. So now you're 7.5, you now have $341,000. Okay, and now that $341,000 is now inside the TFSA, which is a tax-free savings account, which means you can take out $341,000 completely tax-free, which is about the equivalent of about a $550,000 RSP. Because if you took a $550,000 RSP, take off your 40-50% tax, you're down to that number. How many of you love this so far? I love that. And it's only a $102,000 investment. We're not talking about like a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, apartment building you got to go buy, and there's your down payment is $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, right? So it's a nice strategy to align with rental properties, and a lot of people do this. They kind of get in place. It's very passive, because the other thing is now that you're at $341,000, you can just take out $341,000, go use that for whatever you want. Or what if you just took that $341,000? Now you invest that with 3 developments. Right, so now you're spreading it out, right? Because you want to manage your risk also, right? You just don't want to have it all in one pot, so you put it down to 3 developments. And now you live on the 15%. Well, how much is that? $51,000 per year. Okay, so 15% of 341 is $51,000 per year, and that is completely tax-free too, which is what, the equivalent of 80,000 as a job, right? Or if you did this, if you break that down monthly, it's about $4,200 per month, completely tax-free in 7.5 years. I don't know very many financial planners who can do that, starting with $102,000. Do you guys know anyone? There we go, challenge you. There you go, now you got your model. Use it, right? I mean, everyone should be doing that. So if it was a couple and they each did this, they would each have, as combined, you'd have double that. You'd have $102,000, which is $8,500 per year or per month, completely tax-free in Canada, right? Just imagine telling your friends, yeah, we make $102,000 completely tax-free in Canada. They'll be like, what are you doing? Who likes that, by the way? Anyone like that?
It's okay.
It's all right. It's a start.
I don't know. Let's see what else you got.
My bag of tricks. All right. So now where do we find? Now that's 7.5 years. If you had someone who had 10 years to go, well, they could end up with $493,000 by doing just one more development deal. And now 493, they're probably putting 100. They're probably into 5 development deals at this point, right? They're putting $100,000 into 5 different development deals. And now, if you lived on the 15%, that's $73,000 per year tax-free, or $6,100 or as a couple, you're now making $150,000 a year, completely tax-free. In Canada, that will keep up with inflation because most people won't. Yes, you had a question.
Two questions actually. So, want to understand the mutual fund trust payouts. It's
Yep.
per property. So there are 2.5-year projects. Is the payouts happening during the 2 years, or you're actually waiting the 2.5 years? It's
Yeah.
averaging per month.
Yeah, good question. So the question, just so you can hear online, the question was, with the development deals, is there any payouts during, or do you have to wait till the end of the term, which could be 2.5, 3, 4 years, right? You have to wait till the end. That's typically why development deals pay a little higher rate of return over private lending, because private lending, you might get 8, 9, 10, 11%, but you're getting it monthly, whereas private equity deals, you got to wait for a little longer. And that's typically why you get higher rates of return with it. Okay? Yeah, you had another question?
My second question then, so what type of projects are these that are the 2.5-year deals that would fall in this sort of profile?
Smaller deals. So not this won't be the 200, 300, 400 unit towers. Those are 3, 4, 5, 6 years projects, right? So you're looking for something that's 20 to 50 unit kind of range. That's typically going to be a 2.5 to 3 year timeline on something like that. Yeah, the smaller. I might just happen to have one on here. Just as an example. Does that answer the question? Okay, great. All right, so because here's the reality, 47% of Canadians make less than $50,000 a year. Only 10% of Canadians make $174,000 a year. So that strategy I just showed you was $150,000 tax-free as a couple, right? Because this is like as a family. So you'd be in the top 10% by just doing that one strategy. And most people will, and that's $102,000. That's all you got to get together, $102,000. Most people think you have to have thousands and thousands, millions of dollars in order to be in the top 10%. You don't. You can just start today, and 7.5 years, you'll be in the top 10%. Because the average Canadian is going to collect their CPP and their old age security, which is going to be $17,000 a year. That doesn't even cover like heating bills, right? Even here. Imagine Albertans. Yeah, heating bill. That's their heating bill right there. Here you go. All right. So now let's talk about this one. So let's talk about this project. So here you go. Here's an example of a smaller project, right? There's 11 luxury condo homes. Great location, large 2 to 3 bedroom plan, maximizing return and leasing. So this is a project that we're working on right now. We've aligned with an amazing builder in Kelowna. So let's see what you guys know about Kelowna. Okay, it's got 142,000 is the population right now. Anyone know the top 5 industries in Kelowna? Wine, lumber, tourism, healthcare.
Development.
So that'd be real estate development. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got. Employment by the top industries in Kelowna is number 1, healthcare. Number 2, manufacturing. Number 3, technology. Agriculture. Number 5 is tourism. Okay. Used to be a sleepy town. Tourism, go do your wine, all that stuff. And no, it's completely shifted now. Tourism's like number 5. Healthcare accounts for 26% of all jobs in the Okanagan right now. Okay, so the largest private employer is KF Aerospace in Kelowna. Can you ever, right? Okay, largest private employer is KF Aerospace. There are more people employed in BC tech sector than mining, oil, gas, and forestry combined in the Okanagan. Okay, tech sector is the Okanagan's largest economic powerhouse with an estimated 930 companies, okay, contributing $2.5 billion annually to the economy. There are a lot of very high-paying jobs and employment in the Okanagan, especially Kelowna. A lot of entrepreneurs. It's amazing the amount of like houses that are, well, I mean, they're like, $1.5 to $2.5 million, and they're just all over the place in Kelowna now. It's like totally shifted in the last like 15, 20 years. Okay. Plus, it's also got the geography for people like to retire up there, right? So it's got that for boomers, seniors, Okay, so this particular project, and who has not been to Kelowna, by the way? Just put up your hand real quick. Everyone know Kelowna? Okay, good. All right. So you come across the bridge, all right? So you're coming from Vancouver here, come across West Kelowna, going to Kelowna. Here's the downtown core, right? So that's up here, downtown core. Down here is where the project is, all right? So let's zoom into that location there. That location is, right? Do I have a pointer here? I don't want to, is it the top one?
Yeah, I just don't know if it'll show up on that screen now. You try.
I just don't want to
Yeah.
kill it. Yeah, no, it's pretty faint. Okay, no worries. Okay, so between the bridge, this is the Heritage District in Kelowna. That's the site. What's anyone notice on here in that area? Hospital, yeah. What else? Campus, yeah. There's a college, university, yeah. The big lake, yeah, good. Yeah, so it sits between the hospital and the Okanagan College. And this right here is a very trendy area with your yoga studios, coffee shops, all that. And then you've got the Heritage District along in here. You got the bike paths, tennis courts, all the waterfront here, okay? Beaches. All right, so we know that. There is the site right here, okay? So it's actually these two lots right here. And what do you notice about that now? What do you notice about that site? Nice site. Yeah.
Close to the park and lake.
Yeah, you can walk across the street. You're in the park. You're at the beach. Yeah, tennis courts right across there. This is bike lane all coming through here. This is the Heritage District. Basically ends right here at that street, and then you've got all these homes, multi-million-dollar homes, all the way down and all the way along the lake. Okay, so one of the most desirable areas in Kelowna for people to live. And so this is where the project is right there. That's the property right there. So you can see the tennis courts across there, bike lanes all through here. Okay. So location. That's a AAA location for sure. That's why we like this one. Actually, how this project came about was I had done a different development in Kelowna a number of years ago. And I found a builder who I just really got along with. And I hired him to sit with me when we were designing the building with the architect. Because when you sit with an architect, you can have a lot of fun, right? But that can get very expensive very quickly. So I like to design things. I like to be like, yeah, let's do this. I'm ready to get excited. But the reality is if you get too excited and then you do all your drawings for that and then you put it out to tender and now it comes in your budgets, it's history, right? So I didn't want to go through that because that costs money when you're holding properties. So I hired a builder who I just got along with. He's like amazing. He knows costing, he knows pricing. I had him sit in there with me to design it. So, the architect's like going, yeah, we can do this, like huge build, pitch on the roof. I'm like, yeah. And then the builder's like, no. He's like, we can do this roof line. I'm like, oh, that still looks great, right? But I didn't know that, but he knew that. And so that's why I paid him to do that, because it was a great investment of time, right? All right, so here's the project, okay? And so with this project, the other thing I learned on the last one that I did, and I did all that, I did that with my own capital. It was like my practice run at development, right? Just to see if I could do it. And so I went through a rezoning application. I had to get a variance on the project because I needed 6 inches along a landscape buffer because it just wasn't quite wide enough. And so it was just a small variance, right? Well, as soon as you have a rezoning application or a variance, then you got to get neighborhood approval. Everyone can come in, and they're not just saying whether they like the 6-inch landscape variance. They get to comment on the whole project. They get to tell the councilors if they're going to vote for them this year or not, if they're going to approve the project, and it just gets ridiculous. So that was not fun. So this one requires no rezoning, learn my lesson, and no variances, and it's already zoned for the project. There's no public consultation required. Like no neighbors can have any input. It doesn't matter what they say. I'm like, yes. Exactly. And yeah, so it's all rezoned and ready to go. For that, it sits within the building envelope, meaning if you want to go like a little higher, a little wider, that's called you're now outside the building envelope, like the allowable box that you're allowed to put on there. Now you have to go for a variance. So now it goes to neighborhood approval, right? So I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So the engineering requirements are already approved. Fortis requirements are already approved. Preliminary letters are received from the Kelowna. And we submitted this for the development permit last week when we were in Kelowna with Dave. So that's the stage that it is at. Comparables. This is a similar style. This is about the only similar kind of thing in Kelowna. And it's a 3.5 story, basically 4 story, right? And a similar number in units is a 10-unit building. And they sold all those units now. I think they have one left. They might have one left. But it is, as you come across the bridge and you go through the city and you go through Waterfront Park, it's over here in the industrial park. Everyone know where the old mill was, the lumber mill, base of Knox Mountain. So this is the industrial park. So the city of Kelowna has torn that down, and it's going to probably be under construction for the next 15 to 20 years. Okay, so super loud, super noisy. This is the only kind of residential area that's over there, and that's where that project sits that has been sold out. Those are the finishes, so higher level finishes. We're doing all 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units, larger units, because there's a ton of builder grade condos on the market. So what happened was a lot of the builders started, their projects 2-3 years ago, and they figured everyone's doing Airbnbs. So we'll just do bachelor suites and we'll do 1-bedrooms. We'll do Murphy beds. We'll do them as small as possible and just sell as many as we can. Well, now Airbnb rules change, and now everyone's sitting there with all this inventory, and everyone kind of forgot about the 3-bedrooms for the people who are in their 50s, 60s. Their kids have moved out. They want to downsize. They want to travel. They don't want a 1-bedroom or a junior 1-bedroom or any of that stuff, right? They want a 3-bedroom. A lot of people are working from home these days. Both people are working. They want an extra room when the kids come back for Christmas and holidays and all that. And so that market has been completely underserved. There's barely any of that inventory out there. And that's the market that we're going after. Okay. So these were 2-bedrooms. There were a few 3-bedrooms on this one. So those ones did sell. We have the average cost per square foot, and it came in at $1,100 a square foot for that particular project in the industrial area. We have run all of our numbers based on $1,100 a square foot. And that's for our project in this location. Okay. We just had a recent comparable. So anyone who wants to invest in this, you would get the full financials for the project. You would get the term sheet. You get all that, right? So we just had solds in Kelowna. Couple recent sales happen here. So we just look at the 3-bedrooms because that's really what we're going after. And it just shows, there's some buildings that are selling for $2.5 million for a condo, $3.4 million for a condo. So those kinds of sales do occur in Kelowna. The most recent one sold for $1,400 a square foot. And that was a 3-bedroom, upper unit, very similar square footage. I don't even think it was a 10-foot ceiling. I think it was an 8 or 9-foot ceiling on that one. And it's in a big condo. It's in a big building. So it's like spring break, right? And most of the buildings are either in downtown core or they're in very busy areas. They're right on the lake. They're for parties. They're there for renting. They're there for having fun, going drinking, having lots of noise, going jumping in the pools. That is not what this building is designed for. This building is in a quiet area. It's a 3-bedroom. It's got a rooftop patio up there. But it's the doctor who's going to work at the hospital and just wants to lock up and go travel. And they want to have a really nice place. It's got really great finishes. They can do some entertaining, but they don't want to live in a noisy environment like what most of the properties are out there. Okay. So that's the 3-bedrooms. Just shows your cost per square foot, average sales. And yeah, the most comparable just sold for 1,400 a foot, and so all our budgets are on 1,100 still. Okay, so that's the comps. Yeah, average 1,164. Our budget's 1,100, and comps are coming over that right now. So that's that project. There's our floor plans. Nice. Can't you imagine just driving in there? So we got one small unit on the main, and then we've got 3 per on this one. So these are all 3-bedroom units across here. There's a 2-bedroom unit across here, and that's a 3-bedroom unit over there. This is the lake, the blue line over here. All right. And then, so second, third floor have the exact same floor plans. And then once we get up to the top floors, those are 2-story. Okay. So yeah, you got like 18-foot ceilings up, and those will be looking towards the lake, looking towards the city. And the comps I just showed you, the one that went for 1,400, that was a 1 level. It didn't have high ceilings or anything. So we're in good shape. And yeah, and then all the top floors have rooftop patios with hot tubs, kitchens, and then this will be a common rooftop deck where people can, we're gonna have an atrium in here. So you can do like a garden in the wintertime. You can do garden throughout the whole season. People can garden, they can sit up there, they have their glass of wine, talk to their neighbors while they're gardening. And so the builder that we selected is Dave Gervais. He's the guy who I hired way back to help me, like stay on budget, stay on track, and it actually did, which was awesome. And so Dave's Red Seal journeyman. He did his Alberta apprenticeship, licensed residential home builder since 2006. He's done all his core competencies, designed and constructed 18-unit townhouse project. The thing I like about Dave is that he personally invests into his projects. And that's, he comes at it from an investor perspective, not just, hey, here's a builder and charge your GC fee, right? He builds his profitability or into the profitability of the project. That's how he gets paid, which is what I love, right? And yeah, so he's done a lot of infill in Kelowna, completed 32 semi-detached dwellings on multiple sites. He has employed a staff of 25, invested heavily into professional development, so he really takes care of his team. And you can see that from all the guys on site, and just they love Dave and they love working for him, which is a true testament, especially in today's industry, right? Completed 14 projects in Kelowna. And this is some of the projects that Dave has been involved in. So that's the townhomes he's done. He's done single families. There's a 6-unit. So he's got the competency to carry out the type of project that we're looking at. And the market position. I would love the builder to explain like the market position, because Dave actually brought this to me. Okay, so I was down in Costa Rica, and he sends me a text. He's like, hey, Paul, I got this project. I want to get your opinion on it. I'm like, okay. So he sends it to me. I go through all of it. I'm like, hey, Dave, you around? And he showed me, and I'm like, this is exactly what I'd be doing if I was in Kelowna right now, right? But I'm in Costa Rica doing that. And so we get on the phone. I start talking to him, and I'm like, Dave, this is awesome. I go, I love this. I love this, and I go, so how can I help you? Do you need do you have all the funding? He goes, no, I'm a little short on the funding, but I got the team, I got the builder, I got all the, I got them under contract. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so if we come with the cash with our fund, and you're the builder and you do your expertise, we can bring this together. And that's how this project came together. So I'd like to introduce Dave Gervais. He is here with us tonight. He drove in from Kelowna. You can give him a round of applause. Come on up, Dave. Does he need?
I'll make you up there. There we go. You betcha. We're prepared.
All right. So I just wanted Dave to kind of explain the vision of not just the project, but the vision of how he builds and why he builds the way he does. So I'll step over here, Dave. You'll be okay, right? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Go, Dave.
I'm feeling more and more privileged to work with Paul and his team. Very, very knowledgeable. He's very creative and fun, and just his humility is what I think everyone loves about him. And everyone I'm meeting that knows Paul has just so much respect for him. And in the industry, I haven't worked with anyone like that. So
Thank you.
They will.
I've been designing, building, and selling pretty much townhomes in Kelowna for 9 years now. And in 2023, I've been through 3 or 4 ups and down cycles, and nothing stays up forever. And I was really worried. And when the interest rates went up, I saw what was happening and I felt it. But I also saw really high-end real estate. It was selling, upper mission, a sale, like not even on the market for 30 days. And there was so much inventory on the market. And down in the Pandosy area, there was also 450 Park that they dropped all the tarps and everyone was able to see their stucco and their brick. And they were selling townhome unit or condo units well above $1,100 a square foot. And I would just ask myself, why is this happening? And it just brought me back to when I was working with my father as a teenager and just entering the workforce. And we installed custom window coverings, but it was draperies and blinds. And these were packages that were worth $50,000 to $100,000. And I was able to be inside of the most beautiful homes in Edmonton. And my dad just, he said, this is an industry you want to stay in because successful people are always planning, they're innovators, and regardless if the economy is going up or down, their plans are moving forward. And I came to Kelowna building family townhomes in the mid-range and just giving extra quality. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I asked myself, why are these homes selling, these high-end condos? And that's what led to me. And then I've always had a bias for French country architecture. But in Kelowna, it's all West Coast craftsman or Okanagan modern. And they're beautiful, beautiful. That's what I've been building for 9 years. But now it's starting to all look the same. Everything's just like whitewashed. And I looked at this property and then found out the property next door was available, and it's on Abbott Street and the Heritage District, the hospitals. And I'm thinking back of all those lawyers' wives and doctors' wives and politicians that I was installing very ornate draperies for. And I thought, oh my goodness, maybe French Renaissance architecture could be built there. And then a whole vision just started developing, and I just understood why the other projects weren't working. And I'll tell another story. Is just even last Friday, I had a coffee with a carpenter who's really frustrated because there's been 3 site supervisors on his project in the last 6 months for a 6-story apartment. And he's got 3 different nationality groups that don't speak very well English. And the site superintendent's being rotated through, and he's up there cutting out beams on the 6th level of the roof because they weren't supposed to be there. And just there's just no guidance, there's no leadership, the safety is it's very concerning. And I explained to him, this is why I'm a developer. Like this is my piece of property that I can have all the control over, but not in a bad way. So that being vertically integrated, I hire carpenters. I don't subcontract it out. We do the foundation, we do the framing, we do the finishing carpentry, we do the exterior cladding. And in that, you eliminate these profit margins with all of the different subtrades. But as well, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I get to guide them and make sure the quality is exactly what it needs to be. At 514 Design Build, I put 2 or 3 individuals all the way from first year to journeyman up to 4th year, 3rd year, 2nd year. And then I took my really experienced guys and put them through estimating, project management, site safety courses. And I was able to, it was really exciting. Like I attracted some of the best young carpenters. Everyone was below the age of 40. Clean cut, no drugs, no alcohol. And the culture we had 3 different crews, and the culture was it was awesome. And I feel now like I'm a father though. It was a class of 2001. I'd 4 young men that were my oldest daughter's age. She's gonna be 24 now. And they all came from different high schools and didn't know each other. And it was just funny, but they all knew my daughter. And I just took care of them like they were my sons. And it was just different. I wasn't their boss. Like I genuinely cared. I showed them. I would get mad at guys because in the trades, everyone wants to be macho, and one guy will want to show up and lift as much as he can. And I'd love to. I would always interrupt them and just say, "Hey, like you don't have to prove to anyone. I've got a couple of compressed discs. I can't feel the bottom of my foot," because I was like that. And your body doesn't last forever. So I put us together as 3, 4, 5, 6 so that we can do it together, and everyone cleans, everyone lifts, everyone builds, and everyone understands the blueprints, and all the specifications go into it. And contrast to the way the industry norm is right now is 5% equity. I mean, they're stretching out everything they can. So they have to take the lowest bids on subcontractors and the lowest bids on materials, and they have to always bring their costs down and add extra units. This building typically would have 30 units in it, and this I've only put 10 units. The bachelor suite in the bottom was just to give me some leeway with the setbacks. And then I've been really criticized because I'm a smaller operation, but that's, I hand every key to every owner, and all 50 units that I've bought, I was the guy going and doing the walkthroughs and providing the family, the buyers, and I have relationships with almost all of them. And if this wasn't such a high-end project, I'd probably be able to they'd be the pre-sales, and we would sell their unit so they could have a new unit, like equal. So it's all the profit margins, it's the caring, it's the not maximizing, and you get to create something beautiful, something just like a memorable experience, and profits are just, they're higher. They're higher at the end of the day. And
Beautiful project.
I've proven it before, and Paul's trusted me, and many investors, and I'm bubbling to get it past the finish line. At least this one, because I've never had a structure where I could make anything public. I've always done it with a partner. So this is the first time with multiple investors, and it's a great opportunity for me to gain trust of investors because I've gained trust of trades, suppliers, employees, home buyers, and this is feels like the last frontier. Awesome. And maybe public speaking one day, like Paul.
Awesome. Let's give him a round of applause. Dave.
Thank you.
Did you have a question for me or Dave?
For the square footage price.
Okay.
Any question about what's going south of the border going to affect it?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah. So for those who didn't hear online, what's your name?
Maureen.
Maureen just asked, is there any concern of what's happening with the tariffs south of the border? So when that happened, I called Dave ASAP. I said, Dave, where's our building materials coming from? Are the tariffs going to affect it? He goes, what tariffs? I'm like, what? I go, no, we need to know every single material, where it's coming from. So he went and did a full audit on the whole thing. And the only thing that was potentially coming from the US was the glass. But the window frame and everything was still, so everything's built in Canada, Europe, and some in China, right?
It's still China, yeah.
But the
China, yeah.
majority is in Canada. So it's a Canadian-built building. Yeah.
About the I-beams and the steel.
That's why they're tariffing our steel, because we have it. Yeah. I'm using a Hambro truss system. They're manufactured in Calgary.
Okay.
So I don't understand how like we're not putting tariffs on ourselves. But Hambro, manufactured in Calgary, and the rep is from here in Vancouver. And again, superior system, and it just goes together faster.
That's great. I did hear that I-beams are made in South Carolina and shipped back.
Yeah, so it's not I-beams. They're Hambro steel trusses. They're their own patent technology that they used to be really popular, but there are a lot of garages where they develop the space underneath in a residential home. They put these 4-foot-on centers, and you can pull your whole vehicle onto these things. They support so much weight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's I see it. I've done the I-beam way, and I've done this Hambro system, and the Hambro system's way more efficient.
And,
Yeah.
and it's made in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's made in
And now
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's continue. And if we have more questions, we'll let you know. Wasn't he great? All right. So, competitive advantage, prime location, distinctive design, exceptional quality, rare combination sets development apart in a saturated condo market, fully integrated from land acquisition to the architectural design, to the construction, to the skills, to the trades and everything. So it's vertically integrated. And current traction, so we have now done the comprehensive due diligence, confirmed strong alignment between project vision, location, target market, and project costs with preliminary municipal support documented. Milestones achieved, we've purchased the land already. We have, and that's closed now. So the equity portion where investors can get involved is, it's a $4 million equity piece. We've already raised 4.5. And I think that number might be low, right, Constance? I think we've raised probably closer to, we'll call it 2.8, 2.9. So there's basically about $1 million left in terms of the equity component. And so you could invest inside any of your registered accounts. Obviously, if you're doing the TFSA, it'd be, there'd be no tax on it. And it's 15%. So it is, actually I'll get to the development stuff in a second here. So with private equity, okay, you can either do that as a term sheet or an offering memorandum. So an offering memorandum is basically anyone can invest in that. You can be accredited, you can be eligible, it can be pretty much anybody. A term sheet is a little more limited. You have to be an accredited investor, or you have to be a friends or family, right? Friends, family, business associates. One of the allowable exemptions is $150,000 if in a corporation. You could have your own personal corporation. So if you're not eligible or accredited investor or friends and family, you could do that. That would be an allowable exemption. And with the offering memorandum, it's pretty much everybody. So we've done a term sheet on this one, just because it's a smaller project. Offering memorandum is a lot more money to do it. We'll probably do it on the next project, but this one is a term sheet. Okay, so you do have to be accredited or a friend, family, business associate, or put 150 into a corporation. Then you can do it that way. So $25,000 minimum in the project. And the other way, now if you're not an accredited investor or friends or family, then there's another allowable exemption, which is called crowdfunding. Anyone heard of crowdfunding before? Okay. Crowdfunding is, it's an allowable exemption in the private equity market, and you can crowdfund with as little as $1. So, but could you imagine finding like 1 million people with $1, and you got to get them all to sign a subscription agreement. You got to get them all to go through all the due diligence for like $1. It becomes very cumbersome, right? So Addy, anyone heard of Addy before?
We've had Addy as a past guest speaker, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So they're a software platform that is basically built out the crowdfunding, and it's all like done through software, right? And so we're just going through that process right now, and we should be Addy eligible, or like in about probably 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, they haven't put anything on the platform new for 3 months.
Okay.
We're eligible. It's
Yeah.
just waiting for them
To put it on
some
there.
of their processes, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be another way. If you're not a accredited investor, you could go onto the Addy platform, and then our project will show up there probably in the next 3-4 weeks. And then you could, the maximum with Addy is 10,000. So you can invest 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and it's a way to get into these projects and make that kind of return with a smaller investment or not even being credited. Okay, so that is that. I think that's it. Oh, let me just get our contact info so you know how to actually get involved. So it is this project is 15% per annum, okay, plus a 2% bonus at the end. So if you invested 100 grand, you get an extra 2,000 at the end, plus your 15% per year going forward. And there's two ways you can do private equity. You can do either like you're part of the equity. So if the project does well, you do well. You can do better than projected rate of return. If it doesn't do as well, you don't do as well. Right? That's investing in equity. Or you can invest in debt. So we've done debt, meaning you're getting 15% no matter what. So if it goes up, then we get that. If it goes down, then we eat that. Okay, so it's set at 15% per year, per annum, plus a 2% bonus. So that's how that one works with ours. And it's all outlined in the term sheet, which you would get. You'd give that to your lawyer. They'd go through it all. You'd fully understand it. Any questions, you can ask our team about that. Okay. So if anyone's interested in that, you can go to phdmft.ca. You can just register there, and we'll send you out the full investor package. Or you can contact Wealthcare at PHDMFT. And I'd like to do a draw too, if we can do that.
Yeah, and we can probably take a few questions as well. If anyone has any
we'll
specific questions, we can open up the door for that and absolutely do the draw.
Yeah.
Any questions? And again, online, if you guys are watching online, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll read them out. So any questions?
And you know what? Maybe I'll ask a question.
There you go.
And see who gets it.
That works.
And then we do that.
There we go. Let's do that.
Okay.
If there's no questions, then let's dive into that then.
Okay. Now I got to come up with what, 7 questions? Okay. What is the brokerage that Cameron works for?
That's right.
All right. Give a round of applause. There you go. Get a buck.
There you go. Good job, Mira.
Okay. What's the first name of John's partner? What was it? All right, come get your buck. What was her name for everyone? Paulise? Pawnese. There we go. Thank you. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay.
How about what constitutes an accredited investor?
That's a big one.
You have to have $1 million investable cash or liquid assets, or $200,000 personally, or $300,000 with your spouse.
Very close. I'd say that's pretty darn close. All right. All right.
Good job, Rainer.
Now the accredited part is kind of silly, I think, because you have to have like $1 million of like investable cash in paper, meaning you could be a real estate investor and have $3 million of equity.
Yep.
And if you have no RSPs or stocks or bonds, you're not accredited, which to me is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have like the stocks, bonds, RSPs, paper worth of $1 million to be accredited. Right? That's why so many people do the exemptions, or they do crowdfunding, or they put 150 into a corp and they do it that way. Right? Okay, good. Good question.
I just had to turn this one off because I got a question.
Okay.
What's the name of the fund? Or what? At least what are the acronyms?
PhD.
Oh, I think she got it. There we go. You both get it. There you go. Good one. Yeah. Okay. Is this a debt offering or an equity offering?
Debt.
Oh, you got that. Okay, good.
That was fast.
That was fast. Good. And we got one more.
All right.
What do you want to do? You got a question?
Let's see here. What would be a question? Let's see. What was the what's the name of the CMHC program we presented on earlier?
MLI-Select.
There we go.
All right,
Excellent.
there you go.
All right.
A round of applause. There you go. You're welcome.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Well, thank
Perfect.
Paul. Really appreciate you coming out. Round of
My
applause
pleasure.
for Paul. And again, contacts there if you guys are interested in knowing more about the fund, the project, anything like that. I highly encourage you guys to reach out to Paul, get more details on that. And it sounds like a super cool, and you can hear the passion in the developer as well. So absolutely, that's a big key indicator for me. And again, if you guys are looking to get into early access stuff as well, those early access agents, we're one of those ones. So Paul, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming out. All right, we're going to get things wrapped up for you guys here and move you on. We do have a couple of hot deals. And last month was kind of the first time I was able to start presenting deals like this again for the first time in like 5 years, since 2019, because we all know what happened in 2020. Prices started going crazy as rates went down, and we just couldn't buy anything then. Rents weren't going up fast enough. So cash flow was almost non-existent for a long time. And I'm happy to say that we've been scouring, we've been looking online, and we're starting to find more and more just straight cash flowing deals. So if one of your investment strategies is just to own properties long-term, build your own portfolio, we have some opportunity back in our market. So the first one we're looking at, we've actually sold pre-pandemic. We sold a lot in this complex. It's always been a great little cash flowing property. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath town. Sorry, that is incorrect. It is a 3-bed, 2-bath townhouse, but it's not suited. So it shouldn't say 2 suites, but it is about 1,940 square feet, built in 1971. It's quite a large townhouse, which is really nice. So when I was looking at what rents were going for in the area, 3 bedrooms were averaging around $2,500 a month in rent. And that was for anywhere from 1,100 to 1,400 square foot townhouses. So I was like, okay, let's be super conservative. We're not going to go too high on it. We're using about $2,550, adding extra $50 for the square footage, not much. So we like to keep things very conservative when we're doing our numbers. It's currently on the market right now for $425,000. I run all of my numbers based on if you offer list price right now, because obviously your numbers are going to improve if you can negotiate that down. So if it works at list, it'll work anything below that as well. You got property taxes, insurance, strata fees, mortgage, and of course, we're running this one as a self-managed because it won't cash flow. But even self-managed, we're bringing in about $72, almost $73 a month cash flow. Not a bad little cash flow considering what I used to sell all the time. $50 a month cash flow back in 2019, self-managed. So we're starting to see cash flow coming back into the market. When you look at down payment, transfer tax, legal, appraisal, inspection, I put about $15,000 for some fix-up costs. The place needs a bit of a refresh. It needs some paint, a little bit of flooring. You can see they've done some work. They replaced the countertops, but then you've got some, there's no picture of it. They've had some like really dark blue paint and stuff like that. If you want to just get the maximum rent, refresh it up. We budgeted this on about a 4.4% interest rate now over 30 years. And your total return on investment, you're looking at about 0.8 cash on cash, return on equity of about 5.16% after 12 years on mortgage paydown, averaging about a 3% appreciation. We always just factor that in. Chilliwack did much better over the long term. And when we start to see the market improve, I think it'll definitely do better than that. 11.7%, averaging about 17% return on this little townhouse. Great little entry property into the market as well. And then looking at a suited home, this one is a court-ordered sale. We are seeing more of those starting to come up on the market. And the interesting thing, we actually have an offer on a court-ordered sale right now. The interesting thing about the court-ordered sales is we're not seeing the frenzy like we saw in that time as well. We saw a lot of people trying to rush over to them. Offers were coming in fast. They'd go to court, and you'd go to court, and there'd be 30 offers on them. It made no sense. You're paying 10% above market, even above what other people pay on a regular market at that point. Is people think you get great deals. You get great deals on court-ordered sales in markets like this when there's not a lot of activity on properties. When you can actually go in, negotiate hard, be the trigger offer, get to court, and potentially be uncontested, or maybe only have 1 or 2 others that bid up a little bit. This one's 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. It's actually a renovated house. So someone's already put the work into it. So I don't know, maybe they ran out of money. They didn't budget properly. I'm not sure what happened there. 3 up, 2 down, 2,000 square foot house, 5,800 square foot lot, built in 1978. When you take a look at this thing, the gross rent potential is about $4,100 a month between the 2 suites. Expenses is property tax, insurance. We've factored in some vacancy and repair and management on this one. Okay, so this one actually you can have the manager on. Mortgage, total cash flow is about $115 a month with a manager. However, if you want to self-manage, you want to save that money, you want to get some hands-on experience, Your cash flow is about 377. Actually, that's a typo as well. Jury, that's actually $500. So you're actually looking at almost $600 a month cash flow on that. So definitely a really strong cash flowing property to get into today's market. Total investment is about $166,000 to buy this property. Same assumptions. And total return on investment is just a little over 20% ROI on this one. So as we can see, really exciting that rental properties are back in the market. We haven't seen that in a while. Everything was negative cash flow. Rates went up crazy, still negative cash flow, even though prices went down. Rates have now come down. Prices have still kind of stabilized, gone down a bit. Rents have come up a little bit in the market. We're now back into that cash flow zone. So those are out in Chilliwack. We're starting to see a little bit popping back up into Abbotsford and Mission as well. So we're seeing that kind of wave come back this way. All right, we've got some QR codes because thanks to COVID, we're now QR code heavy on everything. So flip out your phones if you want to follow us on different platforms. First of all, you can scan this just to join us on all of our social platforms. We post a lot of education-based content. We post a lot of hilarious content as well, thanks to our graphic designer and marketing team. He's got me dancing. He's got me spinning around on chairs, doing all that fun stuff. So, but we also put a lot of this content out there as well. If you want to catch the replay, you can head over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cameron Manning. I do ask, please subscribe, trying to get that up to 1,000 subscribers. But if you go to the live tab, you can actually see this meeting as well as every other meeting that we've hosted on YouTube. So you can go back and watch all of our other amazing speakers and the other content that we put out there as well. Also, just let you guys know, we do support Make-A-Wish as well. So it's a group that we've gotten involved with this last year. So every sale that we do, a proceed of that sale actually goes towards helping fund a child who's been diagnosed with a critical illness in Canada to fund a wish for them. This is Maddie. I got a chance to watch Maddie speak when he was about, I think it was 12 or so. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and it was so severe, it actually basically put so much pressure on his brain, it forced him to just go to sleep. And they were so scared to actually operate on it because normally they want the patient to be awake and alert when they operate. He only had a 3% chance of survival. They managed to help him. His wish was to throw the opening pitch for the Blue Jays. And this young man has become such an incredible inspiration. Watching him speak, I was like, he's got a life as a public speaker coming up. So that really touched Kelly and I, and we've decided to partner with Make-A-Wish. And like I said, if you guys refer us any business, proceed of all of our sales will go towards supporting wishes for kids. Our goal this year is to grant at least one wish, and a wish costs $10,000 per child to grant in Canada. There's also the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast, so you can check me out on both YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere you see that. So that would be to the audios. For the realtors who are watching, real estate agents, I'm going to be hosting a class on the 25th. So I'm going to be teaching everyone how you can up your social media game using just your own phone, right? At the end of the day, presenting properties at a high level is very key, and social media is one of the best ways to do it. So if you guys are wanting to come join us there, we're gonna be teaching you everything from simple gear to buy to how to do movements with your phones and how to edit through CapCut to make stunning online videos. That's the YouTube channel. We do have an online community as well. So I would encourage you guys, if you'd like to join us on Facebook, this is a great opportunity to find out when next meetings are happening, connect with other investors. If you guys have deals or looking for funding, you can post it there. If you have questions, you can post it there. If you need resources, post it in there. So it's a great little online community that we've built. And our next meeting will be on July 17th. And we'd love to have you guys all come back out to it. With that being said, that is it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you to everyone who joined us online as well. We really appreciate you guys taking your time, sitting at home watching us. And we do encourage you guys, if you are local, come out and join us. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next time. End it there. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.